Hi folks, welcome to Scholarbot Tarot. Just call me Mayfield and thanks a ton for stopping by the study space. Today I'll be doing a VR to hashtag Let's Be Tarot Friends, started by Tarot is Magic. I've also seen quite a few video responses for this that I thoroughly enjoyed. I actually found this tag through Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books, so that one was a lot of fun and it made me want to search more out. I saw The Fool's Apprentice, Sapling Tarot, and most recently 9-Coin Tarot. So all of those videos and video responses will be linked below in the description. All of the prompts and timestamps will also be below. There are quite a lot of them, so we're just gonna dive right in. All right, question number 1. What type of art are you looking for in a deck? So we're just starting out guns blazing, I guess. Well, to be honest, I like all types of art. I don't know that there's any art that I wouldn't like. I mean, I like cartoony art. I like minimalist art. Anything human-made, to be honest. I like Art Nouveau. I'm pretty okay with anime art in my tarot now. I like collages so long as they're not too overwhelming. The sky's the limit at this point. Question number 2. What do you search for in a deck? I typically search for a gimmick or a thesis, as I've said many times on this channel before. I really enjoy decks where the artist really puts their experiences and thoughts out into their work. They typically have something to say, and most of the time I do want to listen. Sometimes, however, I do enjoy when an artist is having a little bit more fun with their tarot, usually with whatever lore that they might have steeped their deck in. I want to say that the Alleyman's Tarot is a really good example of this, where there was a narrative surrounding why each of the cards come from a different deck, and I just think that's a really clever move that can really immerse a person into the deck that they're playing with. I can get behind a little bit of chaos as much as I can enjoy order in a tarot deck. Question number 3. What deck are you most intrigued by now and why? Currently I have been messing around with the Hawk's Tarot, and that's because this deck is new to me in more ways than one. It's going to be a little bit mirrored, so I do apologize, but that's okay. I mean, it's the most recent deck that's come into my collection. I'm not even going to explain this deck because I spent a whole video doing that. But not only is it the most recent deck that's come into my collection, it's also the first anime-based tarot that I willingly included into my collection as well. And it's something that I have been actively practicing with. It's also the first time that I've ever really put two of my fixations together. That being, you know, fandom shipping and tarot. So this deck, as I had predicted a long time ago, is, you know, absolutely the end of me, but it's okay. It's been a lot of fun, and I have actually been getting a lot of really, really good readings with it. And of course, if you're curious about how deep this fixation goes, you can check out my review on this deck. Since that review, I will say that it has been an excellent reader, as I just mentioned. It makes for good inner child work, just as I kind of figured from that initial review, and it also makes a really good rage deck. So that's been a lot of fun to navigate as well. By the way, at some point I'm probably going to stop numbering the prompts because in my script I don't have them numbered. And I know I'm going to lose count because there's so many questions. Let's continue, sorry. So next question. Is there a card in a deck you always check out first and why? Shockingly, no. Not a single card, at least. Yeah, I would say not a single card. I don't really look for a specific card in a deck to check the vibes, but I do give special attention to minor arcana. Some decks will go super hard on the majors, but their minors end up falling flat so hard to the point where not even the core cards could stick the landing. Next question. We've got, if there's one card in a deck that you really don't like, would you not buy it or just pass it along? I'm trying to think if this has ever happened to me before, because there has never really been one single card that I disliked in a deck. It's usually just a bundle of cards that like get on my nerves. Like generally, if it's like a truly offensive or incorrect portrayal of something, I probably wouldn't even pass it along because I most likely wouldn't wish it on anyone else. But I think that's only happened twice. Yet I really can't shake off the feeling that maybe I've had a situation where I did have a deck where one of the cards did bother me or I just really didn't like looking at it, and I feel like I may have entertained the I might have entertained just getting the card, like removing that card altogether and still using the deck. Yeah, okay. In short, if there's an off chance that that has happened or that would happen, I would just remove the card altogether, and still probably make use of the remainder of the deck. It wouldn't really affect me too much. Generally speaking, though, there usually are several culprit cards that would keep me from purchasing the deck altogether. The signs are usually there, you know? Next question. What is your favorite slash least favorite card? My favorite card is the Hanged Man because of how dynamic the interpretations can be. I feel like I've seen at least three different, I feel like very different interpretations of the Hanged Man. And I feel like I've mentioned this before, but there have been a couple of decks where there is like this interesting fixation on the Hanged Man based off of some historical-ish interpretation that just got lost to time. So that's always an interesting read. As for my least favorite card, I would probably say the King of Wands because most of the time, anytime he just shows up, I don't know what he wants from me. Next question. What do people close to you feel about tarot and you doing tarot? My husband is pretty neutral about it. He likes that I have a collection and a hobby that I enjoy. He's actually very protective of my collection too. When I was looking through all of the cards to just kind of cull my collection, I was telling him that I was planning on probably selling some of them, and he was just like, why? Why would you do that? Don't do that. And I'm like, I don't use them anymore. And also we're running out of space, so we need more space. He gets it now, but he's the type of person who doesn't really like to throw anything away that might seem, you know, emotionally and personally valuable, which I do appreciate. I have read for him a couple of times. He's usually pretty reluctant to get readings done for me because he feels like I'm too much of a competent reader. It's like he thinks I'm gonna unlock some inner shadow that he didn't want to reflect on. I don't know. All the readings that we've done together have been perfectly fine, and he's seemed to get a little bit out of them. But I usually don't push it, of course. I do have friends who read tarot. They're a little bit more of casual readers, like an every once in a while type of thing, or it's like a very like it's a very intimate thing that they do for themselves. So it's very rare that we've ever had too many discussions about it. Interestingly, however, the people that do have pretty in-depth conversations with me with regards to tarot are my coworkers who might be interested in tarot. A couple of them really enjoy telling me about like a really successful reading that they had for themselves, or any kind of decks that they just recently bought or that came into their collection. So that's been cool. My parents jokingly call it devil worship, but I don't think they think less of me, so that's nice, I guess. How do you feel about the esoteric stuff in tarot? As fascinating as the esoteric stuff is, I think it's a little too new agey and extra for my taste. And I tend to be more interested in the artist's experience that bleeds through the cards. If there is a deck that's incredibly steeped in the more esoteric base, or that's like its entire shtick where, you know, you're supposed to use this thing for insert esoteric stuff here. I don't know. I typically skip it. Do you prefer RWS, Thoth, Marseille, and why? And or Marseille, excuse me. Because I don't mesh with the esoteric stuff, I'm gonna give it to the RWS system because I feel like there's just more I can work with from a steadier foundation. I don't, well, I was gonna say I've never been interested in the Thoth system, but that's technically not true because I did buy a Thoth deck with not so much an intention of learning the system, but just like as more of a curiosity. But at this point, I'm not interested in picking that system up, and I'm not even remotely surprised that Crowley himself is a bit of a problematic character. So yeah, no Thoth for me. And also, I've just kind of reckoned with the fact that I think the actual like Thoth deck is hideous to look at in my humble opinion. As for Marseille, I do have a couple of, well, a few Marseille decks, but I just pull my interpretations from the RWS system since I'm by no means an expert in numerology, which I believe is how most folks read Marseille. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I know RWS is like not far from those interpretations, but I need the pretty pictures to keep my attention and paint a scenario for me. But I will say that every once in a while I will be in more of a mood where I want to like challenge myself, and I may use like a Marseille deck. It happens. What are your thoughts on cardstock? Not great cardstock can totally be a deal breaker since I occasionally use my decks for stimming purposes. I specifically like matte and linen cardstock. When that matte has like a rose petal finish, that's a nice little feeling. Absolutely amazing, especially if the cards like are actually thin enough to where I could, you know, shuffle with it, like riffle shuffle it. I think there's only one deck that I could do that with. What is it? I think it's the Angelic Arcana. You'll see that on this channel, hopefully within the next year, maybe. I don't know. You'll see that deck eventually on this channel. But yeah, those I can actually shuffle with, and it's very impressive. And of course, the linen finish, the Slighty type is like okay. I think Madame Clara's decks those are linen finish, but like they're a lot more I guess sturdier, and so they feel like nice and secure. And then I think the weirdest linen cardstock that I've ever felt was Yoshi Yoshitani's Tarot of the Divine. It has like memory when you bend it. And it's a little, dare I say, sticky? Not matte sticky either. At any rate, next question. Do you prefer bags or boxes? I was actually kind of at war with myself when I was writing the script for this segment, because I think I don't know, because for the most part I guess I prefer boxes perhaps by default, just because that's what the decks come in most of the time, and like bags just kind of come on in. I just accumulate those from Kickstarters and other pre-orders. I've never purchased a bag on purpose before. So when like a box for a particular deck gets super worn out, then I'll usually put it in a bag. Or when the box is really super big and I just want easier access to a deck, I'll put it in some other bag that that just came into my life somehow. It's a neutral preference. Boxes, I guess. How did you learn tarot or get into it? So this is a fun one. I presented at the Regional Pop Culture Association conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico back in 2013, 2014. I was an undergraduate at the time, and I was in the religion area. I was specifically talking about myth in like a particular video game. Of course, in addition to presenting, this was my first conference, so I wanted to attend as many panels as I possibly could. And in addition to a couple panels that I was interested in, specifically in the video games area, there was also an occult area that I popped in on. I think it was like the last day or so. I wish I could tell you specifically what that panel was about and what each of the presentations were, but unfortunately I don't remember. But I do remember a lot of the conversations bringing tarot up, and I was very intrigued because I think there might have been a presentation on just the archetypes in tarot in conversation with like something else that I don't remember, but I feel like it was something that I needed to know at some point. A few years later, I would bring this experience up to a coworker of mine when I worked at Starbucks, and she would eventually gift me the Beautiful Creatures Tarot, the first edition. I think I made it like my little summer assignment to go through each and every card and read the entries in the guidebook and in a standard Rider-Waite-Smith guidebook, and just kind of compare the two and make little journal entries on them. And so that is how I would eventually learn the tarot. Best news in the tarot world you've heard lately. I have a few short ones, like a few small ones. Andrea Furtick's Afro Goddess is now mass market. That was pretty exciting to notice. I had to come across it, and it wasn't actually an announcement. Grandma Baby Apothecary has some kind of mystery announcement. They used like this image from the 52 Blues project that was supposed to be like a card deck, like just a regular playing card deck that I think was supposed to be like round and stuff like that. So that's interesting. And the Hurricane Mystic finally made a brief social media appearance after what feels like a couple of years. They shared a few images on their Twitter account for a deck that I think they were working on before hiatus. I'm honestly just glad they're doing all right, and I really do. I mean, I'm super stoked to learn more of what they're working on. How many decks are in your to-get list? I did have a wish list. It had 3 decks on it, but I don't think it's relevant now because I'm kind of over those 3 decks. I guess my imaginary to-get list is definitely like the aforementioned Afro Goddess mass market edition. I have already pre-ordered it, actually. I'm just super curious to see how it turned out. And I almost considered getting Baba Studio's Bohemian Gothic Tarot just to see what the buzz is about. Since it's like one of those heavily sought after decks, and I hear the cardstock is just out of this world. I don't know, I guess my to-get list is usually decks that I just want to see what it's like, and then probably just pass it along to someone else, with the exception of the Afro Goddess. I feel like that one's going to be good. The whole thing though with Baba Studios, and the reason why it might not be on my to get list is just because I don't like the art. I think it's a little superficial and perhaps kind of flat. Mind you, I wrote this segment before I watched The Fool's Apprentice's VR, and now I feel so bad. It's my opinion that it's not fun to look at. Alright, next question. If you could only keep 3 decks, which ones would you choose and why? I'm not gonna lie, like this was a little challenging, but thankfully not for long. The Black Gold Lenormand, the Landback Tarot, and the Yochi Yokai. It is not lost on me that all 3 of these decks are out of print, and I'm mildly sorry about that. I swear I chose these 3 decks based off of cardstock, practice, and text reasons. So the Black Gold Lenormand, this is by Grandma Baby's Apothecary. The back's super small. So the Black Gold Lenormand is just a historical product for me. And it's the closest thing to a sacred item that I have in my collection. It's also a really nice size, so it's kind of perfect for stimming with. And it's also, you know, got that nice matte rose petal finish. And the cards are surprisingly, like, not too thin, but thin enough for me to be able to shuffle. And that's probably thanks to its size, too. I chose the Landback Oracle because it's kind of become like a go-to deck for me. Anytime that I kind of want to do a reading but don't really have like a taste for anything specific, it's, I guess, what I'll call my default deck. I can always be in the mood to read with it because it offers just a lot of heart. It offers a lot of experience, and it's just a smart and relevant deck for the world that we're living in. I mean, it's always a joy to read, like just passively or otherwise. The Yokai Yochi is one of my favorites to look at. It's just simultaneously so gorgeous, yet so easy on the eyes thanks to just the delicate brush strokes and its like sepia tones. It feels like a massage on your brain when you look at it. Or at least that's how it feels for me. I also really like mythology, and I feel like the Japanese mythology here feels so just authentic, as well as just easy to understand and very simple to relate to each of like the cards that these mythological creatures are assigned to. The guidebook literally only tells you what the creature depicted is and a very short, simple blurb on just one of its attributes, and those attributes have a tendency to relate directly to what the card is supposed to mean. And I just thought that was like the smartest thing ever. It's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, this was a very well done tarot deck. I'm also realizing that it seems like my 3 decks that I would keep are just right on that line between, you know, that sacred and mundane kind of area. They're all so simple and yet very complex and deep to work with. How does knowing tarot influence your everyday? Well, since it's fairly difficult for me to identify my emotions on some days, I do feel like I have a better understanding of how I express them. Really, yeah, thanks to my tarot practice, I would think. And also, simply knowing the tarot has enhanced the way that I watch television and just the way that I consume certain media. It was really weird to watch the third season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because like all of the special abilities stands they call them, at least in that season, were based off of the major arcana and a couple of other occult adjacent concepts like Thoth and some other shit that I don't remember. But yeah, any other TV, film, book. I have read a couple of novels that include tarot, and it is really interesting just to see how they're incorporated and how they're portrayed, usually in a decent way, or at least an interesting way. If you could turn back the clock, would you have learnt tarot any other way? Probably not. My way wasn't all that conventional. And yeah, I wouldn't really recommend a system like the Beautiful Creatures to be really anybody's first deck. If you're not familiar with the Beautiful Creatures, at least the first edition, it had a completely different court card system where all the pages were nymphs and the other courts were zodiac signs, and a good chunk of the major arcanas had title changes. So not the most ideal system to learn with as a beginner, but I mean, it worked out all right. I think maybe in retrospect I would have spent a little bit more time delving into the court card interpretations. It probably would have assisted my understanding in, you know, zodiac signs, because I don't really have like the zodiac systems memorized. I couldn't tell you who's an Aries and who's a Scorpio. What are your thoughts on the Three of Swords? At first I thought the Three of Swords was kind of an overrated card, but now that I know that there's like an alternative way to read it, it became much more palatable to my practice. I guess with its standard interpretation of like heartbreak, right? It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me in conversation with the other threes. I mean, we have a burst of celebration, a burst of embarking, a burst of cooperation, a burst of epiphany. I kind of get it now. Not that you can have, you know, an epiphany after heartbreak, of course, or pain or anything like that, but I think it's, I think that element of self-reflection is incredibly vital to my understanding of this particular card. How many decks do you have right now? Based on my inventory spreadsheet, I'm pretty sure I have like 110. I haven't updated it yet because I know that I've gifted a couple decks within the last 6 months or so. And I sadly haven't put anything up for sale on my Purgatory box. It's on my to-do list. I swear. If you could befriend one person on Tarotube or in the tarot world, who would it be? Ah, parasocial relationships. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, I can't imagine not wanting to be friends with anybody that I've like subscribed to or anyone that I've encountered on Tarotube. However, I would probably say, like, in a broader like tarot world, I'd probably say Winslow Dumaine, the creator of the Tarot Restless. We're like the same age. I like a lot of his comedy, and while I don't think our musical tastes like fully align, I am super interested to hear more about like the kind of music that he listens to. It was also the biggest trip seeing Dumaine being covered in this YouTube channel called Internet Today, which is one of my go-to news channels. he had recently gotten some mainstream news attention for being like the Chicago rat hole guy. Apparently there's some hole, like rat-shaped hole in a pavement in Chicago, and he made it super popular or something. I'm still a little fuzzy on the details, to be honest, because it was so wild. But I just love watching people that I follow grow their business, you know? You love to see that kind of success despite how random that success may have come in. What is your favorite part of the day to do tarot? I would probably say evening. Not even probably. I would definitively say evening. I've been one of those schmucks who, fantasized about having a nice little morning. I wake up extra early so I can watch the sunrise and have my cup of coffee and a snack, and I read my cards to set the intention for the day, but no. Folks, not only am I not a morning person, but I already have a morning routine. It's basically where I ride the snooze button for 30 minutes. I'll look at my phone for 10 minutes, and then I slowly and dreadfully step out of bed so I can get my morning ready and, etc., etc. And besides, I do think that tarot just works better for me at night, because that way I can just sort of reflect on the rest of the day and just wind down from a long day. And finally, I don't know if this is a prompt or not, because I feel like people have either missed it or skipped it, but there is a hidden prompt called confession, right? Yeah, it's a confession. And I do have a confession. Folks, I have never been given a reading. Not casually, not professionally. No one has ever read my cards for me. Alrighty, so what did I learn today? Well, when I initially looked over the prompts, I didn't realize how easy some of them would actually be to answer. Like, under ordinary circumstances, even though I did fight with myself on like the 3 decks question, yeah, those are usually questions that I would struggle with, and again, I did. I really feel like I'm relaxing into myself and just getting better acquainted with what I truly value in connection with, how I got here. I can better identify the type of art that I like. I can better identify what kind of cardstock that I like, or what decks I would keep if I was only limited to 3 decks. And again, those are hard decisions to make, of course, but I thought it was going to take a lot longer for me to get this video out based off of those questions. But it ended up not being the case. I was actually able to really be able to sit with myself and think very clearly and even logically on what I genuinely appreciate and want to see in my collection. And really, isn't that kind of the purpose of this tag? The more you learn and know about yourself, the easier it is to be able to form connections and collaborate with others. We get a chance to get to know ourselves and each other on our own terms, I would hope. Major thanks to Tarot is Magic for initiating this tag and, today's lesson. As mentioned, all other relevant links will be put in the description below. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. All that I ask is that you make discourse and not war. I will catch you guys either in your own video response to this hashtag or in the next video. Until next time, folks, see you later. Bye.